In February 2025, former U.S. President Donald Trump labeled Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator. This statement sent shockwaves through the international community. It raised questions about U.S. Ukraine relations and Trump's understanding of the conflict. Zelensky was democratically elected in 2019. He won with over 73% of the vote. The election was recognized as free and fair. The timing of Trump's statement was significant. It came amidst heightened tensions between Russia and the West. Trump's words echoed Russian propaganda. It reflects concerns about his approach to Ukraine. Understanding this statement requires a deeper dive into U.S.-Ukraine relations. Volodymyr Zelensky's rise to the presidency of Ukraine was nothing short of remarkable. A former comedian and actor with no prior political experience, Zelensky captured the imagination of the Ukrainian people with his message of change and anti-corruption. His landslide victory in the 2019 presidential election, securing over 73% of the vote, was a testament to his widespread popularity and the public's desire for a break from the old guard. International observers, including the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, deemed the election free and fair. Zelensky's victory was a clear demonstration of the Ukrainian people's commitment to democracy. He assumed office with a strong mandate to reform the country and address the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine. Zelensky's background as a political outsider, far from being a liability, proved to be an asset. His lack of ties to the established political elite allowed him to connect with ordinary Ukrainians who were disillusioned with corruption and the slow pace of reform. To call him a dictator is not only inaccurate, but deeply unfair. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 marked a turning point in the country's history. The invasion plunged Ukraine into a state of war, forcing the government to take extraordinary measures to defend the country and protect its citizens. One of the most significant steps taken was the imposition of martial law. Martial law is a temporary state of emergency that grants the government expanded powers to maintain order and security during times of crisis. In Ukraine's case, martial law has allowed the government to mobilize its armed forces, impose curfews, restrict movement, and control the flow of information. These measures, while necessary for national security, have inevitably restricted certain civil liberties. The postponement of elections is one such restriction that has drawn criticism from some quarters. However, it is crucial to understand that this decision was made in accordance with the Ukrainian constitution, which allows for the postponement of elections during times of martial law. Ukraine is engaged in an existential struggle for survival against a powerful and ruthless aggressor. Donald Trump's labeling of Volodymyr Zelensky as a dictator has sparked widespread debate and speculation about his underlying motivations. Possible explanations range from calculated political strategy to a genuine misunderstanding of Ukraine. One theory is that Trump aims to undermine Zelensky and weaken Western support for Ukraine. Another is his transactional view of foreign policy, prioritizing personal interests. Lastly, it could reflect his admiration for authoritarian leaders. The shadow of Russian narratives. Donald Trump's dictator label for Volodymyr Zelensky aligns strikingly with long-standing Russian propaganda narratives. Since the Euromaidan protests of 2014, Russia has sought to discredit and delegitimize the Ukrainian government, portraying it as a Western puppet regime controlled by neo-Nazis. This narrative has been disseminated through state-controlled media outlets, online disinformation campaigns, and political pronouncements. Trump's statement plays directly into this Russian narrative, whether intentionally or not. By echoing Kremlin talking points, he lends credence to their disinformation campaign and undermines efforts to counter Russian propaganda. This convergence of views raises concerns about the extent to which Trump's worldview is shaped by Russian narratives. Trump's affinity for Russian President Vladimir Putin is well documented. He has repeatedly praised Putin's leadership and downplayed Russia's aggressive actions. U.S. Ukraine relations, a strained partnership. Donald Trump's dictator label for Volodymyr Zelensky has further strained the already complex relationship between the United States and Ukraine. The two countries have been partners since Ukraine's independence in 1991, with the U.S. providing significant financial and military assistance to support Ukraine's democratic development and security. However, Trump's presidency marked a departure from this bipartisan consensus on supporting Ukraine. Trump's transactional approach to foreign policy, his skepticism of U.S. alliances, and his personal affinity for Vladimir Putin led to a significant cooling of relations between Washington and Kiev. Trump's first impeachment trial centered on his attempts to pressure Zelensky to investigate his political rival Joe Biden in exchange for the release of U.S. military aid. This episode damaged trust between the two countries and raised concerns about the politicization of U.S. foreign policy. Trump's recent dictator comment further exacerbates these tensions. It undermines U.S. credibility as a supporter of democracy and weakens the transatlantic alliance that has been crucial in supporting Ukraine against Russian aggression. Global alliances, navigating uncertainty. Donald Trump's dictator label for Volodymyr Zelensky reverberates beyond the immediate context of U.S.-Ukraine relations. It raises broader concerns about the state of global alliances and the future of the liberal international order that has prevailed since the end of the Cold War. Trump's presidency was marked by a disdain for multilateralism and a preference for bilateral deals. He withdrew the United States from key international agreements, alienated traditional allies, and cozied up to authoritarian leaders. This America First approach shook the foundations of the liberal international order, creating uncertainty and instability on the world stage. Trump's recent comment on Zelensky continues this pattern of undermining U.S. credibility and weakening global alliances. By siding with Russian propaganda narratives, Trump emboldens authoritarian regimes and undermines efforts to promote democracy and human rights around the world. The implications of this shift are far-reaching. The importance of defending democracy. The controversy surrounding Donald Trump's dictator label for Volodymyr Zelensky underscores the importance of defending democracy and supporting democratic leaders under threat. Democracy is a fragile system of government that requires constant vigilance and protection. It is under assault today from both within and outside, from authoritarian leaders who seek to consolidate power, and from external actors who seek to undermine democratic institutions. In this context, it is essential for democratic nations to stand together in defense of their shared values. This includes providing political, economic, and military support to democracies under threat, countering disinformation and propaganda, and promoting democratic reforms around the world. The United States has historically played a leading role in promoting democracy and human rights globally. However, this commitment has wavered in recent years, particularly during the Trump administration. It is crucial for the United States to reaffirm its commitment to democracy and to work with its allies to strengthen democratic institutions and norms around the world. Conclusion, truth, and consequences. Donald Trump's labeling of Volodymyr Zelensky as a dictator is a stark reminder of the power of words and the fragility of truth in the digital age. In an era of rampant disinformation and political polarization, it is more important than ever to be vigilant in defending the truth and holding leaders accountable for their words and actions. Trump's statement is not only factually inaccurate, but also deeply damaging. It undermines U.S. credibility, weakens global alliances, emboldens authoritarian regimes, and erodes trust in democratic institutions. The consequences of this rhetoric could be far-reaching, potentially leading to a more unstable and dangerous world. In these uncertain times, It is essential to remember that democracy is not a spectator sport. By speaking out against disinformation, supporting democratic institutions, and demanding better from our elected officials, we can help to safeguard democracy for ourselves and for future generations.